Well, today I have the wonderful privilege of welcoming Lauren Pressley, Associate Dean of University Libraries and Research and Learning Services, to come talk to us about organization and different technological tools and resources we can use to get more organized. She has a wonderful wealth of knowledge in this area. Lauren regularly publishes and presents on leadership, organizational change, the evolving information environment, and more. She's very skilled at using technology to stay organized and has put together a great presentation for us with a huge wealth of resources. So we will go ahead and share a document for you to reference throughout. I'm going to put that in the chat. I'm going to wait till about 5 minutes in because I know we always have latecomers. And Lauren, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you and let you take it away. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. And thank you for such a warm and kind welcome. Give me one moment and I'll share my screen. Is that accurate?
Yes, it looks great. And I just want to remind everyone, we are recording. We'll make sure and share that recording once we get it up onto our YouTube. You can send questions throughout in the chat and we'll make sure and pause and have a little bit of time at the end as well for questions.
Thank you for that. And I'm really excited to be here with you all today to talk about tools for information, work, and time management. I early in my career did a lot of these types of workshops, and it was really fun to get a chance to sort of pause and reflect on what really works for me and things that I thought might be useful to share with everyone. So to get started, I wanted to give a little overview of where we'll go today. There's, an endless wealth of tools that you can turn to for help with all of these things. So I'm going to sort of parse it down to a manageable list to consider. And we'll talk a little bit about principles that I use when deciding whether or not to take on a tool. We'll talk about time management, management of work-related things, information management, and then I have a couple others at the end I can tack on. And if that sounds good, we can just dive in. And when I was thinking about what to talk about in this setting, I was thinking about all the different resources I've turned to think about how to manage my time and projects. And my understanding is there's lots of those types of training opportunities. So in talking with Anna, we settled in on looking at specifically tools that can be useful. So what we'll talk about today are a set of tools that may or may not. And my assumption is that you will leave here thinking most of them might sound kind of interesting, but aren't for you. But if one or two are for you and could be transformative, I would consider that a real win. So we'll run through a bunch. I wouldn't expect it all to be perfect for everyone, but hopefully there will be some useful things for you. Some assumptions that I bring into this conversation is that we're all dealing with an incredible amount of information overload, both in our work life, in our professional life, and any other circles that you travel in. That you're probably getting news and email and social media and all kinds of things coming at you all the time. I also bring to this the assumption that we're all juggling lots of tasks and projects and goals, both at work and at home and in other spheres, that we're trying to figure out how to move those things forward. And I don't know about you, but for me at this point in the pandemic, it's a little harder than normal even to keep all that straight in my head. So I'm really relying on systems more than I might normally. And another assumption that I bring to this is that managing the complexity will help. For me, at least, when I manage all the different information sources and requests that I'm getting and everything into a system where I understand where everything is, my anxiety reduces, my ability to get things done increases. And I would hope that that could be true for you as well. So techniques for picking tools, I would say first to experiment a bunch, to try, like if you know you want, for example, a task management system, try out several of them to get a sense of what works for you and doesn't, but then focus. I have a bunch of friends who are very interested in exploring these types of tools. And we can sometimes, the friends who are very into this with me, we can sometimes find ourselves creating a new project of pulling everything out of one system and putting it into another. And then we've just created 2 hours of unnecessary work and the old system was just fine. So I'd say no system's going to do everything you want, but if you can find one that's pretty much there, just use it. And for me, I've been able to therefore reduce the number of tools I'm using, and then I might be willing to pay for a pro account that gives me a little more functionality for the few that matter. And another thing that I would recommend is sort of looking for ways to reduce the total number of inboxes. And if you're unfamiliar with that concept in project management or task management, it's the number of places where stuff is coming into you. So for me, I've really gotten it down to my email inbox. I have a sort of task inbox where if I'm in a meeting and someone mentions something I ought to do, I just dump it all in an inbox for task. websites that I'd like to read, all those open tabs across the browser. I have a place that I put those in scholarly articles. So I'm down to 4. And the email one I check every day, but the rest I might check once a week or once, whenever it fits into my schedule. So that really also helps me feel in control of my information environment. And I would hope that could be true for you as well. And then the caveats I want to put around this is that we'll talk in detail about the tools that I'm using in my life and my system. And I do spend a lot of time thinking about this. I'm an information professional whose whole life is about how to organize information and make it findable and useful. So I've thought about it a lot, but I've thought about it from where I'm sitting. So you might have different variables that you would bring to play. So my hope is not that you want to pick up my system, but that you can find the things that are useful for you. I also work in a primarily Apple iOS ecosystem. These days, a lot of the apps can work cross-platform, but I just want to highlight that in case you're looking for a specific title of one. And many of the ones I'll show you today also have interfaces that work on Android or Windows or generally PC systems. So with that, we can dive in. And the first thing that I wanted to mention was the concept of the Pomodoro or the Pomodoro technique. And this is an idea of blocking your time into about 25-minute segments and then a 5-minute break. So you might work really hard on email for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. I might go see my kid upstairs. I might look at library Twitter, see what's happening there, but then 25 more minutes of work after that. And I raise this because perhaps you have had this experience where you get out of a meeting, you have 1 hour of time and you're like, I have a million things to do. And I'm not sure how to make headway on this gigantic list of things. And the ability to sort of break up time this way makes it possible to really focus in, accomplish a chunk of something, reward yourself with that sort of mental break, and then dive right back in. So I often will try to stick some Pomodoros between meetings to actually get through the email or the tasks that are building up. And for this, I like to use something called Be Focused Pro, which is a tool that has that built-in timer, but you can also apply to it like what the work is. So for me, I'm very interested in how much time my email is taking. So I have a category for email, a category for meeting prep, like categories that are meaningful for me. And then at the end of the week, you can have a sense of where your time's really going. Is there something that really probably ought to have more time than you've been able to create? Because that can help structure time differently too. There are a host of these Pomodoro style tools. Be Focused Pro is my favorite because it works on all my platforms. I start the timer on my computer, it shows up on my watch. So I like it for that reason, but there are a bunch of these tools that do the same basic idea. Connected to, but different from that option is something called the Forest app. And this is another timer, but instead of being built around the Pomodoro 25-minute chunks, it's really meant to sort of elongate your time focused. So in the Forest app, what you do is when you click the start timer, you set it for however long, the longer the sort of fancier tree that you would grow. And when you click start, the tree is planted and starts to grow. And you can see here a little picture of a forest. And what this offers you is if you put the extension in your browser, in a Firefox browser or Chrome or whatever, you can tell it, while this is activated, while my tree is growing, I do not want to have access to this host of websites. So if you are a person who is drawn towards checking some sports scores or looking at Facebook or whatever, this is a way to effectively add a barrier between you and that site. You can also put it on your phone, and then that way it just doesn't let you access the phone. Or I think now you can say certain apps on the phone are okay, but generally speaking, don't use the phone. And if you do, because you might have an emergency, the tree just looks dead in the forest. So it's supposed to motivate you to be able to focus for longer periods of time without some of those distractions that are really, really easy to get pulled into, particularly in this remote environment. I also heard that it might be useful to talk a little bit about email. And there are so many ways to think about email at this point in time that I'm really going to talk about Outlook because I know that's what most of us are in. But I will point to the fact that email is a really, part of the reason I think that email is hard is a lot of different stuff takes place in email. In some ways, it's like where your newsletters are. In some ways, it's where very important asks are. In some places, it's more like almost social conversation. And having all of this mixed up in one place makes it a chaotic experience. And like answering email could mean a wide variety of things. So I have really since coming to UW, I have focused on using the folder structure in Outlook differently than I have at other places. I've used different tools in different times. But what you can see here, this is like a literal screenshot from my sidebar in my Outlook, is I have three main folders: a process folder, a review folder, and a references folder. And the process folder is where I put the things that really need somebody to act on them, like me, to act on them. So if I were to like unclick that and show underneath, it would be a bunch of things that are currently in play. And during the day, I might have time to pull a couple things over, but I'm frankly in meetings from the moment I come to work till the end of the day. So I just drag things into the right folder. And then when I do have the minute to sit down and reply, I can get the whole context of the conversation at once, write the one email to reply, archive the rest of things from that subfolder, delete that subfolder, move on to the next one. So
we're not seeing the slide you're talking about.
It should say email on top.
Yeah, Lauren, the slides didn't seem to change for us.
It didn't change.
Interesting. It did on my side. Do you see Forest now?
We see Forest.
Okay.
We see Forest, but it says Pomodoro at the top.
Okay, do you see email now?
Still no.
No.
I'm not sure what the disconnect is.
I can go ahead and pull up the slides real quick.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Let's see if that makes a difference.
And thank you for letting me know. I obviously can see it on my side, so I had no idea.
There
See
it
it now.
It's there now.
Okay, so I'll keep going, but if we have
now.
Okay. So if we have a problem, Anna, we can just trade off at that point.
Yeah, sounds good.
We're good. All right, so for me, the process folder is like very active, and the subfolders, they are come and go. I frequently delete them. Review is where I put all those messages that we get that are the sort of mass messages from campus or listservs for campus that don't require a response, or for me, association news. So all that stuff that doesn't actually require a response, but does require eyes. And for me, I like to use that one, for example, in the morning, right when I first wake up, before I'm ready to like communicate with the world. That's a good time for me to read. So that allows me to be able to pull out that type of email and deal with at a time that makes sense there. Then I have the set of reference folders, and I have them for all kinds of things like travel approval for people who are requesting that, mass communication, which is like for me a folder that has subfolders like messages from the library, messages from the university, so I can keep up with what these official messages were. And these are the emails that are done. They don't need any more attention, but probably do need referencing, and I might need to be able to pull out if there's an open records request or something. I also put in here a link to the records management guidance from the university, because they do provide really good guidance for how to think about that long-term storage and when it makes sense and when it doesn't. But my fundamental takeaway on email, which I struggle with as much as anyone, there's just so much email these days, is to really think about how you might be able to use some sort of batch processing to make it easier for you to answer it when it makes sense for you, instead of it always being something that's pinging you throughout the day. Connected to that in Outlook is rules, which some people deeply know and use all the time, and others have not been exposed to it yet. So I just want to take a moment to say that if you are in Outlook and you go up to tools, select rules, you can have a way to automatically have some of your emails go to certain folders. So for me, anything that is a mass communication automatically goes to that review folder, and it never goes into my inbox, because I need my inbox to be the stuff that needs attention. You can turn these on and off. So if you have a listserv that's gotten real loud and noisy and active for a day or two and you just cannot handle it, you can filter it for that day or two and then turn it right back off when it quiets down. So it gives you that sort of flexibility and allows you to change. I don't know about you all, but I have some email lists that I'm on and I don't know why I'm on it and I cannot get off of it. I'm there forever. So you can use these rules to just automatically delete those messages. You never have to look at them again. So these rules are acted on the email before you see it, like the moment it lands in the inbox, and hopefully can make it easier for you to create an environment that maps to what you actually would like to see and know that you need to respond to. Another strategy I have for information that we're all trying to deal with are index documents for Google Docs. And I know that Google Docs is adopted in differing ways across the university, but I know that a lot of groups are using it at this point. So I like to share this one because the number one complaint I hear about Google Docs is how are you supposed to find the things that matter? It's a really chaotic inbox and you have to rely on search. And I don't know about you, but like all my stuff has the same keywords in it. So search doesn't always work the way I would like it to. So what you see here is a screenshot on the left of my personal Google index document. On the right, sort of overlapping it, is the index document I have for the team that I work most closely with. And on mine, where it says in play at the top, you can see it starts with meetings and then it has names of people. And those link to the Google Doc agendas I have with those individual people that we're both contributing to throughout the week. But this means when that meeting pops up, instead of trying to figure out where that link is and navigate to it or hoping that it's in the calendar invite, I always know it's sitting right here in this index document. And it's just literally writing the word, highlighting it and putting a link on it. But it really has been transformative in being able to find those recurring documents that are very important in the moment. What I do in the team one, on the one that's sort of in the front, is I have these background documents that are things that we refer to all the time. And then I have that bar and then projects that are the things that are currently in play that we're working on together as a team. And underneath this, I will have like the name of the month, like finished the name of the month. And then once they're done, I cut and paste it down there. And that both helps us be able at the end of the year to be able to say what work actually happened because we have a list of the documents that we finished. It also helps. So much of our work is, especially remotely, feels so abstracted. And sometimes it can feel like, what are we even doing? So it provides that list and sort of gives a sense of what the work has been and what good changes have come because of that work. So it takes a little bit of setup. I just always have these open. These never close. There's just feel like they're part of my browser at this point, but they're the ways that I get to the places where the work is actually happening. I also am a big fan of task managers, and there are millions of these, it feels like. I'm a big user of Todoist. This is the tool that I have found to be most useful, but there's a bunch depending on what your interest is. And I put several links in the handout. So this is one of those areas where you could play with a lot of options. For me, this is a real central inbox of where my work is happening. So for example, if I have created a folder in my email that is clearly going to take some time and real thinking, I'll create a task here that's process whatever the name of that folder is and put a deadline on it to make sure I get it done on time. I get sent, I'm imagining this happens to all of us, I get sent websites all the time. Here's a video to watch, here's a form to fill out, here's a whatever to learn. So I will have a browser extension in my browser that I can click on, and it says add website as task, and I just put a date on it, and then it goes into my task management system. I can close that tab and not have to worry about it anymore. You can see in the sidebar here, I have a section called meetings, and I have meetings both that I'm in charge of and then meetings one-on-one with people on my team or with my colleagues in the library administration or with other folks that I work with. So whenever something pops up that I need to tell someone, I put a hashtag their name. That's how you create a type of project in this system. And then whatever the thing is. And then when I meet with that person, I can just bring up their project and I have a list already populated of all the stuff that I needed to share or ask about or see if we could brainstorm together on whatever the topic is. Similarly, if a theme starts showing up in a bunch of those one-on-one meetings, I can identify that as something that should probably go on a meeting agenda for a group, and hashtag name of whatever that meeting group is creates that project. And then whenever I'm making agendas, I can just pull up the project for that team and build an agenda based off of those items. You can see I also have a section for long-term thinking, which is just to make sure that I keep these sort of long-term strategic goals in mind, as well as short-term projects, which are the things that definitely feel like they're going to conclude and be done, but have an awful lot of tasks tied up with them at the moment. So I use this to hold all of that sort of information as well as routine tasks. I have a little medicine that I have to take at a certain time every day. So I have that in here at a specific time so that I just get the same reminder in the same system. The one inbox tells me everything I'm supposed to be doing. And this is, for me, has been really powerful and useful because this tool becomes the one source of truth for everything that I need to do. So if someone is wondering where we are in a project, I can go here and see exactly what my next steps are. I can trust my brain. Like if a thing pops up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I can roll over, put it in on my phone. It'll be there. I can just not worry about it because I know everything exists in this tool. And I can also say that only works when you look at your to-do system every day. That source of truth thing, especially when there are deadlines in there, only works if you really do check and make sure that you are looking at it and knowing what's in there. So I do look at this every day. This is, yeah, Todoist is right up there with email as my two most used tools to make sure that I'm not dropping balls. Or if I am dropping a ball, I understand what the implication of that might be. So I highly recommend some sort of option like that to capture everything. This one has a tiny bit of gamification in it. You get points over time, so you can like watch your productivity. If that is something that motivates you, that's less important to me than how extensible this is with browsers and other tools, but it has those types of features as well. So if you're getting emails and you're having lots of to-dos, I'm sure you're also taking notes or getting notes or participating in places where you're getting documentation that you're trying to keep up with. And there are several really good options for this. I historically have been an Evernote user because of earlier in my career. OneNote is really great too. That's part of our Microsoft system. And in these tools, you can collect a wide variety of notes, which I find really helpful because often things get segregated by information type, but that doesn't necessarily help you when you're trying to solve the project. So you could, for example, in this, put handwritten notes. Both Evernote and OneNote will search your handwriting if it's legible. So often when I am doing that, I might not write legibly for everything, but I try to get some of the keywords that I know that I would search on to be legible enough to be searchable. You could take screenshots of whiteboards, screenshots of any sort of casual writing like that. You can attach files. So sometimes you may have this experience too, where you have like a Word document or a PDF that needs a little more context to understand like why you got it. This person sent it to me to review for this purpose. So you can put that note in there, attach the file, and have all the context for the thing together. You can, from browsers, just click a button in either system and it will take a screenshot of the page so that you have access to that later, which is great for those changing websites where there's different things on the front page or different types of news. And you can also pull over email as is relevant. So sometimes, like for example, in the earliest days of COVID, I had a folder that was like the whiteboard for planning, all my handwritten notes, a couple emails that I copied and pasted because it had important dates or other information, but it was this multimedia capture of everything that we knew about COVID at that time, which became really useful. So also, again, I come to this idea of a single source of truth. So with a really robust system of notes that's organized in a way that makes sense to you, you can see that I have like active folders and then reference folders for the library, for my department, for personal projects, et cetera. That means that you don't have to necessarily worry about things as much about where they are. I sometimes will put links to Google Docs in here. I might even cut and paste the Google Docs text if I want it to be searchable. So you can really create a system that becomes your own personal reference source that can help you navigate the complexity of whatever the thing is that you're working through. So far, we've been talking largely about tools that can be useful for managing work, but I know that as part of work, often we have things that we need to come back to and read about later, or that we might need, even in your personal life, if you see on Facebook or Twitter something, an article that you'd like to read, just stuff that you know you want to come back to, but you don't have capacity to in that moment. I'm a big fan of a tool called Instapaper, although there's another tool, Pocket, that does something very similar. And what these tools do is allow you to, in a browser or on your mobile device, click a button and say, this is a thing I'd like to read, but I'd like to read it later. I really like Instapaper because it's organized around reading. So for example, you can see I have a bunch of folders in the sidebar here that are where I pull the articles that I find. I think the one that's open is the libraries one. You can sort on when you saved it to get to your oldest things first. You can sort on how long it's likely to take you to read it if you only have time to read like a 5-minute article versus a 40-minute one. So this one is really built around reading and sort of taking in the information. For me, I've also found it useful, like when I have a dozen tabs open, save all the things to Instapaper, and maybe the next day, only 3 of those actually continue to seem interesting. So it's a way to feel okay about letting go of some of those tabs. If you were to be interested in Pocket, it's very similar, but that one has a social dynamic as well. So you can share to the public like quotes from the web pages that you're interested in. So if you're interested in the social aspect, Get Pocket is a pretty powerful tool as well. Both of these are designed to allow you to create essentially your own personal publication. So I think of this as like my own newspaper of stuff that I have already said would be somewhat interesting for me to read, and serves as like the thing I can turn to if I have some downtime but don't have time to actually engage with a task or something that needs to be done. So some folks in this room probably also do a lot of research with scholarly articles or things that you might, PDFs that you might be getting out of library databases or other sources. And I have a specific tool for that I use called Zotero, which is transformative for those of you who might need to do this type of work. Zotero, again, has a button in the browser that you can click on that captures the PDF that you're looking at, as well as the metadata about the PDF. So the article title, the author, where it was published, when, all of that information. And what it does very well is allows you a way to organize. You can see I have a bunch of folders over here too, the themes of articles that you're looking at. You can open it in the browser and take notes, highlight pieces of it. So all your research on that article stays with the article and with the citation. I actually use on my iPad a program called Papership, which integrates with Zotero and lets you use the Apple Pencil to draw on it as though it were a paper PDF. So it's starting to feel very familiar to my college and grad school experience. Zotero continues to get better. Some of these features are going to be baked into the core product in the near future, but right now Papership is a good tool to use along with Zotero if you have an iPad. And if you are someone who would find this type of thing useful, the real way that Zotero shines is you can use it as you're working in Word or in Google Docs while you're writing to insert parenthetical citations to the sources in your Zotero. And then at the end of the paper, there's essentially a magic button you click and it builds your bibliography based on what you cited in a way that feels like magic, like truly like magic. It normally needs a little bit of cleanup, but it has probably saved me 20 hours in the course of my research life to not have, maybe even more than that, to not have to go through and do that by hand. So this is a tool certainly for organizing information. That's why I'm presenting it here, but also it can be a tool to help if you're producing new information for the world as well. Another way of organizing information that can be really powerful and helpful and in a lot of ways is a password manager. There are a number of these tools on the market. LastPass is actually endorsed by the UW CISO's office. So LastPass is very good and approved for UW. I, in my personal life, for all my personal things, use 1Password. And these tools have a tiny bit of learning curve up front. So if you were to be interested in this, there is a little bit of work you'd have to do to get familiar with it. But on the flip side, it can save a tremendous amount of time. So it's one of those that you'd have to decide is worth it and invest a little bit up front. And what these tools do essentially is allow you to, when you log into a website, log in with a really hard password that you would maybe never be able to remember or type accurately. And it will generate those passwords for you, so you don't have to come up with them on their own, and it will remember it for you, so you never have to type it into the website. So I remember my 1Password password to get into that tool, but then if I need to go to a website, I click the 1Password button and it automatically populates with my login information so that I never have to remember it. And then it can hold other information too. Like, so I'm using 1Password for my personal life. So that has my credit card information in it. So if I want to make a purchase, it's there. It has license numbers for software that I purchased personally and things like that. And another feature that both LastPass and 1Password do is let you know if you're reusing passwords across the same website, across different websites. I'm sure many of us have done that. That those passwords, if they leak from one, people have put together, they can use those passwords to try to get into other websites. So this can help you start to pull out from using the same password on multiple sites and use something different and challenging for each. It can also warn you if a site has been hacked so that that password's out in the open so that you can go in and change that one. So that they're very powerful around managing your highly secure information on the web. And these tools are certainly standalone, so you can go in and use it, like look up what are the passwords, but they also have the browser plugins, both on mobile devices and on computers, so that you never have to remember exactly what you did, but you can just click a button to get to the answer. We used LastPass in my last job at UW in a team. So the whole team had an institutional account, which meant all those passwords that might need to be shared to get the work done as members of the team no longer had to be like written down and shared, but we could all log into the same LastPass and use the same password. And if it got changed, everyone had the updated password. So it became a way to be much more security minded as a team to make sure that we were behaving with best practices and making sure that we weren't accidentally exposing our passwords to the world. So it's a tool that I have found to be very, very helpful in a lot of different ways. And it, as I said earlier, does have a little bit of learning curve up front, but is one of those that for me has been transformative. And I know that I'm being safer online because of this type of tool. So I've been talking about browser extensions a lot, and I know that's something that's probably super familiar to some people on this call and less familiar for others, and that's totally fine. It's just depending on what your background is. But for those who are less familiar with the concept of a browser extension or add-on, for Safari, for Firefox, for Chrome, for any mainstream browser, they all have some sort of shop that allows you to add something to your browser to make it more functional and useful for you. So in the case of like the password manager, for example, if you add the browser extension, now when you're at the website where it says create a new login, you can click that button, say generate a password, it generates it and saves it. So you never have to do that again. For Zotero, you click the extension, it says, yes, we got the PDF, it's now in your library. So it simplifies the steps a lot. And there are a number of these tools that are really powerful and helpful in lots of ways. So as you might guess from this call, I have several across the top of my browser. So I thought I would talk about some that have been useful for managing time for the purposes of this conversation. And one that I really like is called Momentum. And that one is the screenshot directly under the word momentum here. And what Momentum does is it gives you, when you do a Control-T new tab, it gives you a really clean interface. You can see I have selected to have the Pomodoro up front for that because this is really a way that I try to get some stuff done. Across the top right, you can see that I have a countdown to when the next academic quarter will begin because the library has some projects tied up with that. I have time of day for the places that I call the most often. Libraries, the American Library Association headquarters is in Chicago, so it is useful for me to know what time it is there. So I have a clock for that, as well as the East Coast and weather. You can add bookmarks to this. You can take notes in it. There's a ton of things you can do within Momentum, but I like it largely because it gets rid of distractions. So the new tab isn't a list of the most frequently used websites that I've had, or it's not a website that's a news source that I'm going to get sucked into. It's just a very clean, peaceful image. The pictures rotate, and it has some basic information I might need for being able to get some things done. One tab right underneath it, but shown on the right, is really, for me, a transformational extension as well. And this is one for the scenarios where you have the like 500 tabs open, you click one button and it creates essentially a list of what those links were and closes them. So I have here, you can see that there's one that's called Working with a Star by it. And those are things that are connected to work in some way that I always will need access to quickly. So if I accidentally close those tabs, I can just get one tab and open them all right back up. I'll say that Tasks for Habitica is a task management system my kid uses that has a gamification built into that. So that's why there's a tasks one there that I haven't spoken about. The one above that says 2 tabs with a couple links, those are links that actually were closed when I hit one tab. Those 2 things were open, I hit one tab, they got saved here, the browser went empty, and it meant that I knew I could get back to them later if I wanted to, but I didn't need to have them open at the time. So one tab is a way to really clear out that sense of impending doom that can come from having so many of those tabs open and waiting for action. And then at the bottom, I have this other tool called Simple Tab Group, which is, it took me like 2 or 3 minutes to understand what was going on with it for setup. So the on-ramping for it might be a little complicated, but what I love about it is you can create, essentially, you can imagine creating buckets for different types of tabs. So like the tab of things that I need to look at pretty regularly, but I'm not actually actively looking at, can go in one bucket. The Google Docs that I'm actively working on need to be in another place. Somewhere else I could put, just depending on whatever the project is, but you can create these different groups. And then when you click on one, it doesn't close any tabs. You can easily get back to what was open, but it shows you whatever's organized in the way that you've organized it. So for example, as I told you earlier, I have to-do list open all the time. I have the 2 Google index docs open all the time. They just sit together in a tab group. So I know I can get to them, but they're not always cluttering up what's happening in the browser. Because that, for me, has been a source of sort of anxiety, is trying to keep up with why all the tabs are open that are open. So those are a couple examples of browser extensions, although most everything we've talked about today has some sort of browser extension connected to it. And then I have a couple of very, very niche tools, but they're so useful for me that I thought I would share them, because there might be a niche tool like these or others that would be useful for you.
Didn't change again. Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Okay, good. Thank you. So the first one I'm going to mention is called Pencil Planner Pro, and it's essentially a daily agenda. And I use this as part of how I keep up with my work, because I don't know about you all, but for me, if I write something down, I am significantly more likely to remember it than if it's presented to me or typed up. So what I do is I have, I'll forward to a blank day, but it essentially pulls in your Outlook calendar for you, but then it has spaces to record what you've done that day, or notes from important meetings, or facts about that you need to keep up with, in what mimics that sort of day planner tool that, that for me at least has always been part of my life. So this is an iPad tool. It's fully integrated with the Apple system, but it allows me to have a space to both pull in the stuff that is sort of automated from my work calendar. I never have to copy that over again. That's what I used to do with my paper planner. And allows me to sort of track where things are going on a calendar basis. And for me, that's really useful. Other people might have less of a need for it. This does require being part of that Apple ecosystem. There are similar types of tools for other platforms, but it's one of those things where when I've sat down with a friend over coffee in the before times and I show them, some would be like, well, and then others would be like, that is transformational and I'm going to go all in on it. So I wanted to share in case you might be in that group. And then the final tool that I had flagged to definitely talk about is about journaling. And obviously, journaling, people have different connotations on it. For me, I track reflections, I track information about events that I participate in, I track medical information, track things about cooking. This is not actually a screenshot of mine. This is from their marketing materials. But journaling, and the way that Day One is set up, the tool that I use is designed to have lots of different notebooks for different topics so that you can pull everything together. And for me, again, have that one source of truth. So in mine, I actually have a journal that screenshots from that last one I just showed you of the daily planner. So I can very easily move through those. I also integrate anytime anything health related happens. So if I have to go see my doctor, I can just share with them the medical entries and they can go through and see it on a timeline. These types of tools exist in all kinds of different platforms, useful in different ways for different people. There's actually a Facebook group for people who are all in on Day One, and several of them talk about how they use this type of tool for keeping up with their meeting notes and other things. So they're using it almost in like an Evernote or OneNote sort of tool. But ultimately, sort of at the other end of this arc is capturing what has happened so that when there's a next step, you have a place to go to see where you've come from. So you'll be ready to take that next step. So that was a long list of tools, and you have a longer list in the handout, but we thought it would be useful to do sort of a deep dive into sort of a way of using these types of tools to organize your life. And for me, obviously these all work. These are tools that I use throughout the day, every single day of my life. For you, it might be that some small portion of these, or maybe a different version of some of these could be useful. So I'm not at all claiming that these are perfect for everyone, but I'm hoping that seeing some examples in use might help you see some ways that can make your life a little bit easier. So with that, we're at the 12:40 mark. So if there are any questions or comments, it looks like stuff might have happened in chat. We could certainly talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and just read off some of the first questions we've received in chat, and people can go ahead and you can raise your hands and send in more questions as you're thinking of them. First and foremost, that was a lot of great information. So thank you, Lauren. And as you said in the beginning, we know everyone needs different tools based on your own workflow and your own life. So we definitely recommend that you deep dive kind of into the resources that Lauren's provided for us on that PDF. The first question is, how does Zotero compare to Mendeley, if you're familiar?
I am familiar. I have not been a huge user of Mendeley because Zotero is an open source platform that I just got hooked on very early. Mendeley is associated with some publishers, so I just don't know as much about where that tool is going. I have friends though who are active researchers who love Mendeley. So if that's one that you've heard about and are already using, I'm not sure that I would make a switch necessarily. They do very similar things. And that's a good point. I should have thought to put that on this handout. It didn't even occur to me, but Mendeley is another great PDF citation, PDF management tool.
Awesome. And one other question we got is, does OneTab replace your bookmarks?
No, that's a great question. Thank you for asking for clarification. So you can still have all your standard bookmarks. What I've done is I've tried to really distill it to the key ones. I use a whole nother tool for bookmarks that I thought might be one step too far for the purposes of this, but I use a tool called Pinboard for bookmarking, but you could use your browser bookmark the same way. OneTab would not mess with anything that you've set up already.
And kind of going along that same line, if you are willing to spend a few minutes, could you share with us how you organize your bookmarks for websites? That was another question.
Put the slide in then. I really was going both ways on it. So I'm sorry that I didn't do that. And I can, maybe I can follow up with the link as well. But for bookmarking websites, I use a tool called Pinboard, and it allows you to tag your bookmarks. So I'm trying to decide if it would even be worth opening my browser to show you, but you can put tags on your bookmarks. You can also put a description. I often pull a quote from the website to make it clear why I saved it. And then you can search on those tabs or on the text. And if you're a user of Pinboard and pay a fee for it, it will save the snapshot of what the website looked like at the point at which you bookmarked it. So all that sort of link rot that happens, things that you might have seen 5 or 10 years ago that went away, it'll save a picture of what that looks like as well. So that is my go-to move for bookmarks.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you. So the next question is, does the Note app you use work with Google Calendar? I didn't catch the name of that Note app, but.
Google Calendar.
Because it integrated with your Outlook calendar. So the question is, what about Google Calendar?
Yeah, so the OneNote one integrates with Outlook because it's all part of the Microsoft family. Neither of those are Google tools. I think most of the people I know who have talked about using Google as like their primary notes place just use Google Docs and have a folder set up as their essential personal notebook of notes. I know that Evernote has worked very hard to make it possible to do linking back and forth. So you can get a link out of your note to put in your Google Calendar entry if you want to be able to go back and forth, but it's still you manually connecting it rather than it being baked into the system.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm trying to keep an eye on all the chat and the questions coming in. So another question someone had is about resource management software This person is trying to track their FTE across 20 projects. And a few people shared in the chat talking about Trello being good for kind of managing your resources and your time. Do you have any other to add?
Yeah, there are a host of project management tools depending on what that FTE is doing. So Trello is amazing. We've used it a lot. The groups that I've worked with have used it a lot. For example, even with student employees, we might have a set of tasks that they do. So we can just copy the board over for each person, and then they each can take the task and move it along how far they've gotten. There are other tools like Basecamp that are like collaboration platforms where you could, I mean, that's a pay for service, but you could get a bunch of people logged in and everyone can see where the tasks are. Asana is another one that's very popular. So there are a lot. I think if you're talking about tracking the work of multiple people and collaborating as a group, I would search for project management tools. I might even add social to try to get to the fact that it's multiple people, but there are a bunch of tools that all have slightly different variations. So the way I have played with these in the past when I've introduced them is maybe getting one or two people to sort of play with me in a bunch of tools so we can figure out which one is the right one for this group at this point in time. And then we go all in once we've made that choice.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good idea because it's hard to distinguish, which parts of different softwares are best suited for your team sometimes. So another question we have is, do you have any advice really just on time management strategies for getting caught up? I think a lot of people are just feeling really behind, and these tools are awesome, but even just to get to the point where we're organized in the tools. So any advice you could offer there?
Yeah, I mean, we're all there together. I'll say for myself, the structure of my day, so I don't presume this is true for everyone, but it's just completely booked from start to finish. So what I started doing was trying to make Friday be my work day. Like I will meet with people from Monday at 8 till Thursday at 5, but Friday I'm going to try to protect as much as I can so that everyone knows if they're waiting on something, they'll get it Friday. Friday I will have time to actually go through. So that has been a technique for me. I think speaking as a supervisor, sometimes I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed. So I would want to know if people did feel like it was too much or if we needed to like maybe slow down something. And then we could talk together about, is there something we could slow down? Because I don't think anyone wants anyone to burn out. And I think that it's very easy in this isolated environment that so many of us are in to feel like we're alone, but we're all working on it. So I'm a big fan of, if you feel safe doing so, trying to have those types of conversations. For me, for example, I had some medical leave and my email inbox and my to-do inbox got chaotic, and I came back in trying to just get the work done. And what I, in retrospect, should have done is given myself half a day to deal with those inboxes before the work, because it made everything feel much harder. So to whatever extent you can, like, permit yourself to take that time to do a little bit of upfront to just make it less chaotic, I think makes the rest of it a little bit easier. But some of the things that maybe I didn't talk about but showed up are like those shared Google Docs with the people I regularly meet with. Means we don't have to have a lot of conversations about what we'll say in the meeting. We just are both populating those documents as things come up. And then when we have the meeting, the agenda's already made. We don't have to think about it ahead of time or ready to go. So that there might be things that could be baked in depending on what your work looks like to simplify it, but it might take a little bit of like working with others to see what they're comfortable with and sort of evolving practices that way.
Thank you. So I'm going to try and paraphrase this next question, and Bruce, go ahead and let me know if I'm paraphrasing properly. So this question is on Zotero, and so is it integrative across your devices? So if you have it on your PC, could you then pull it up on your phone and the information stays up to date?
Yes. So yes, you can have an account on Zotero that syncs across your PCs. The Papership app I referenced for the iOS ecosystem is a way to get to it on your mobile devices. Zotero is currently beta testing an app. So I am anxiously awaiting their app coming out because I plan to just reduce the number of apps I have and go with the Zotero tool itself. So that is coming as well. It's an open source platform, so they haven't prioritized that in quite the same way, but I think the number one feedback they've gotten is people want to be able to get to this on their mobile devices as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, I think I got to almost all of the questions. If not, someone else in the chat answered. It's been really great to see everyone kind of sharing other tools with each other and offering answers to different people's questions. Would anyone like to real quick, you are welcome to raise your hand if you have a specific question. I'm keeping an eye, I'm not seeing any others come through. Maybe I'll give it a minute just in case anyone's typing. First and foremost, thank you again so much, Lauren. As I said earlier, this is just a lot of great content. We'll make sure you guys all get all the recording, the list of resources and tools, and also the slides via email. I'll send those out right now after we hop off, if you haven't already been able to download them in the chat. Chelsea, I see your hand is raised. I'm gonna let you go ahead and take the floor.
Thank you so much. This has been really helpful and useful. And so I have a question in general, I think probably a lot of us can relate to. I will find myself making good organizing systems that I'll work with for, months at a time or so. And it really helps me and it's really useful. And then especially when I get less resourced or more stressed or busier in general, it kind of all falls apart because it's easy to lose sight of how much it helps. Do you have any experience with that or advice for how to overcome that kind of letting burnout affect the organization, which then creates a bad cycle?
I have that experience. So I totally get that. And I appreciate you raising that. I think for me, what I have done, which may, or your mileage may vary, but I've tried to note when that happens. Like, as you could deduce from my selection of tools, I tend towards reflective action. So I try to really note, when does my email spin up into a place where it's just not manageable anymore? When are those times that I step away from my to-do list in a way where I no longer feel like I can trust it? And for me, I've definitely noticed patterns, and that allows me to get ahead of it a little bit and sort of preemptive. I see this is coming. I'm going to go ahead and carve out some time. Every month, I try not to do it all the time, but every once in a while I might pick a Sunday afternoon to just give myself permission to retreat from my family and fun and instead focus on this, knowing that I'll have a clearer head and more patience as a result. So sometimes I'm not advising everyone use all their free time to do that, but for me, every once in a while, the trade-off has felt worth it because I know my evenings will be calmer and I'll be happier as a result. But a lot of it, I think, has been being really cognizant and trying to note when that pattern starts to emerge and when I feel it's about to happen again.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
We did get some more questions coming through. So I'm just, we've got 7 more minutes. I'll keep firing them off. Those who can stick around, we love to keep seeing those questions. So the first one is, do you have any recommended tools for financial management?
Gosh, depending on what you mean by that. My family is a fan of You Need a Budget. If you're talking about like personal finance tracking and budgeting, that tool allows us to see where the money is going that we're spending. In terms of work type things, I'm not sure. Certainly the university has tools. I have some shadow Google spreadsheets that I share with my leadership team to make sure we're all on the same page. So there might be tools like that if that's what's meant. I'm not exactly sure. Financial management feels so big to me. It can be a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. You Need a Budget is definitely, a few other people put that in the chat, and our Fidelity partners have talked about that as well. So that's a great recommendation. And then another question is, can you just tell us just kind of a quick overview? What is a browser extension?
Yeah, so I'm so sorry that I wasn't clear enough about this earlier. It's essentially a tiny piece of software that can be added to the browser to make it be more useful. So, and it's hard to talk about because I'm sure we have people using all the major browsers. But if you are, for example, a Firefox user and you typed in Firefox add-on, you'll be taken to, they might even call it a store, but they're generally free. And you can essentially add functionality to the browser that you have. So for me, for example, I have added the Forest app, and I block a number of websites that I know are temptations for me using that app. And then it just sits there right next to the bar where you type in the URL right next to it. You click it, and then now your browser behaves differently. And in this case, it's not going to let me go to about 5 websites. So it's essentially just a little piece of software that allows the browser to do something different. And if you go into the setting of your browsers, you can turn them off too. So once they're there, You can try them out. If you don't like them, you can turn them off or delete them entirely. So they're really just extra and not fundamentally changing how your browser interacts with the world.
Thank you. The next question we had is, can you just dive in one more time into your Google Index document? Maybe if we can also just throw up that slide one more time.
Sure, let me get back to it. So this was really just a hack to get together solution that turned out to be transformative for me. So it would really be whatever you need it to be. The one on the left is my personal one. So no one else has access to that. I actually was like, hey, should I share this with the world? Because now you all know what my regular documents are. But essentially you can see it's like a bulleted list of text. And then I might next to it, for example, the first one, Christine and Ange, they're two people I meet with regularly. So when I created this document, I had this open and their agenda that we sort of collaboratively build and take notes in from our meetings. So I took the URL at the top there that I already have access to because it's open, and I just turned the name Christine and Ange into a link with that. So now when I meet with Christine and Ange, I just have to have this open. I click on that, their agenda pops open next to this one. For me, you can see I have a lot of agenda type things in this space. On the right, you can see it's more like reference sources. So information about library budgets, communication like channels that things are coming in through, guidelines that we're all expected to follow in the libraries. So I have it all captured in one place. So anytime I need a link, I know it's there. And some of the links on the right hand actually link to our intranet. So it becomes an index of all the stuff that I need to do my job. The one on the right is more like the hub for collaboration with the directors that I work most closely with. So it's all those documents that we together are trying to build for everyone that we work with. And it becomes, we all were having a hard time keeping track of even what was still in play versus what was done. So I set this up as a way to sort of track that and let us all, like, now we can bring it up and say, are we done with the context planning? Yes. And then I can just cut and paste that bullet to a completed section underneath it so that it's no longer muddying up our active work, and lets us see where we are with different projects. I'm not sure if that answers a fundamental question or not.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps. And then just a real quick follow-up was, where do you save the index doc?
Mm-hmm. So they're just top level documents in my personal Google Drive. Actually, mine is top level in my personal one, and then the director's one is top level in their shared Google Drive folder. But I literally never close them. Those are two tabs that I pin to the top and I just leave open all the time because I am using them multiple times per day, every day, which makes it really easy to add to as well when things come up.
So another question we had that I think, this might be relevant for a lot of these different tools is about integrating Outlook with your UW email and Pencil Planner Pro. What about if you use Pencil Planner Pro for any personal notes? Will those then be subject to UW's open data policy, or it's kind of a long,
yeah,
I don't need to read more, but
yeah,
what about that integration?
I hear that. And Washington is much more strict about this than most states. So you do have to think about it more here than a lot of other places. Pencil Planner Pro for the calendar is just sucking the data out of Outlook. So it's not a work document. It's just pulling over existing Exchange data. If you were in Pencil Planner Pro to change some of the Outlook calendar entries, the change would reflect back in your Outlook document. It's not you're not creating a duplicate work record. It also can integrate with your personal calendar. So my family has a Google Calendar together. So it has both those collapsed into one interface, which I find necessary most days to be able to keep up with everything. The rest of what I put around the Pencil Planner Pro, other than maybe the tasks that I completed, which are really transient notes, are largely personal things, keeping up with, oh, this family member's birthday is coming, I need to get a present, or those types of things. But it's more for those sort of scrap notes that you might take throughout the day rather than permanent documentation of project management, which is happening in the Google Docs or in Outlook spaces. So there are more official places for the actual work to happen.
That is super helpful. And if we didn't fully answer that question, I'm sure you could email us after, or maybe we could find some resources too on UW-IT's website. The last question I have, we're at a minute, or now it's 1 o'clock, do you know any tools for specific, grant budget management? If you've have any experience in that area, and they said specifically from having multiple budgets supporting a single project, and kind of managing that.
Yeah, that is a great question and something I'm actually looking into. So I don't have a great answer at the moment. Shared Excel files or shared Google spreadsheets right now is where I'm working. I'm not sure that's the best answer, so I'm also looking. So maybe one day there could be a follow-up with an answer, because I suspect that it's the sort of question that if I have it, you have it, there's probably a lot of people, I'm guessing there's a solution out there. We just have to find it.
Totally. All right. Well, lots of kudos for you in the chat. I can definitely share the chat with you as well, so you can check this out at another time. But so far, people have really loved this session. And for those who were able to stick around, thanks so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your afternoon, and maybe we can all set aside some time to try out a lot of these tools for ourselves. I know I personally am taking away a lot. So thank you so much, Lauren.